Oh, okay, thanks. Thanks. Okay.
Like,
Okay, great. So she's speaking then. I wonder why she waited then out there. Okay. Oh, that's fine. Welcome, everybody, to the Committee of the Whole meeting of November 13th at 3 p.m. Welcome to the presenters from the Seniors Planning Table that was speaking to an update. We'll do the land acknowledgement. The District of Sechelt is located on the traditional and unceded territory of the Sechelt Nation. We respect the histories, language, and culture of the people of the Sechelt Nation, whose presence continues to enrich this community. Om Noshala. I'd like to call this meeting to order and ask if there's any conflicts to be declared from council. Seeing none, I'll move on then to 3, the adoption of the agenda as presented. Councillor Toth, Councillor Bell, all in favor of the adoption? Thank you. Let's then move quickly into delegations, which is the Seniors Planning Table update for Mary Karos or Karos. Karos, okay, great,
Karos.
thanks. Thanks, welcome.
thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. Hello, Mayor Henderson and Councillors Bell, Inkster, McLaughlin, Rowe, Shepherd, and Toth. It's an honor to be here today with you on the traditional and unceded territories of the Squamish and Sechelt Nations and to be able to share our update on the Seniors Planning Table. I'm Mary Karas, Executive Director of the Sunshine Coast Resource Center, which is home of the Seniors Planning Table, and I'm joined today by our co-chair, Sue Elliott, and by Shari Myhill-Jones, who is a member of the Seniors Planning Table Steering Committee. Sue's going to begin our presentation with a bit of history and context. So, oh, there it is.
Okay, there you go. So, thank you, Mary.
Point it the other way.
Okay. So I have been on the Seniors Planning Table since it began, 2014. That's when I was first invited by Pat Hunt and Ann Titcomb, who many of you may know who've been around Sechelt for a long time, and they were involved with the progress plan. And the reason that I'm showing this is that in some ways nothing has changed, but it's this is what birthed the focus and the need for a working group on seniors planning was identified as an issue for the whole community, and the need for coordination and communication. Thus was birthed the Seniors Planning Table, and in 2015, we were funded by the foundation and by the District of Sechelt and New Horizons grant coming together to have a Seniors Planning Table coordinator. After that, with the steering committee, one of our focuses was on isolation. And as any of you know, being isolated is a mental health issue, and for seniors, it's huge. So it comes into community response issues, and all of our work focuses on what are the issues addressing seniors in regard to isolation on the Sunshine Coast. If you were on the council in 2021, you would have seen me in a Zoom meeting where the then seniors manager and I presented an evaluation that we had done over the year in regard to the Seniors Planning Table. And at that time, we discovered lots of huge, very positive attributes of it, mainly bringing people together who served seniors in the community, and where were the gaps, where were the overlaps, and we've moved forward since then.
I'm so sorry to interject. I've just been told that our online viewers are not able to hear. You're a little bit too far from the mic.
Okay, sorry, I didn't know you were
hold the
viewing
mic.
on Zoom, so
Okay.
thanks. So recapping from 2014 in the progress plan, recognizing that there is a huge need for coordination and communication in regard to issues for seniors, the evaluation allowed us to see the strengths of the planning table, but also recognize we needed to broaden how we were connecting with seniors in the community and then find a way to move forward. So at this point, I'd like to turn it over to Mary, who came in as a seniors coordinator and now is also our ED. And you'll see that the incredibly overarching breadth of the work of the Seniors Planning Table is indeed an asset to the community.
Thanks, Sue. So the Seniors Planning Table is governed by a steering committee of about 8 of its members. We meet quarterly and we set an annual agenda and goals for the year. We have a membership of over 40 local organizations representing about 115 people, all of whom either work with seniors or for seniors, or in some cases are seniors themselves. We have about 3 or 4 meetings a year. This year we did a housing forum in January, and we just finished up in October a town hall meeting in Roberts Creek with over 60 people with various presenters from local senior serving organizations, mostly an update meeting. In addition, we've coordinated over 11 other events, including fraud workshops, seniors caregiver support network meetings, brain health workshops, and surveys to our community. And we were very busy with our 4 working groups, which I'll tell you about in a minute. We also publish a monthly seniors update e-news that outlines current seniors events and learning opportunities. And so the working groups this year, we've always had working groups. This year, we've focused on seniors transportation, seniors housing, caregiver support, and healthy aging community collaborative. All of these working groups include members of the Seniors Planning Table, as well as sometimes partners from outside. For example, in the case of seniors transportation, they include local government, other nonprofits, and partners such as VCH, TRAC, and Cover the Coast. Our Seniors Transportation Working Group, incredible momentum in this working group this year. We had monthly meetings with transportation partners like TRAC, SCRD, and VCH. We hosted, we partnered with another Be the Change project in May to have a transportation-focused month, including senior surveys on transportation and a convening with VCH's policy arm on transportation and collaboration. We were also successful in getting a Partners in Change grant for a pilot project to research the viability of a regional transportation coordinator for the Sunshine Coast. And we got funding for a seniors transportation assessment and action plan, which is in some of the handouts that I gave you. You'll see the report that we just published. And last week, I was honored to co-present at the 2024 Summit on Aging on Rural Seniors Transportation. Our Seniors Housing Working Group addresses the critical shortage of seniors housing on the coast. We also have monthly meetings for that working group chaired by Kelly Foley of Cover the Coast. And as I said, in January, had a housing forum where we explored local and perspectives from outside our community on innovations in seniors housing. We also got funding from Partners in Change again to pilot a NORC, which is a naturally occurring retirement community at the Watermark building. So looking forward to that. And we also partnered with Cover the Coast on creation of a community housing guide for the Lower Sunshine Coast, which contains all of the options for subsidized and seniors housing. That's also in your package. So as we know, more adaptable, affordable, and supportive housing for seniors on the Sunshine Coast is critical. So our working group is exploring various innovations that we might be able to implement. In 2023, The Seniors Planning Table held a caregivers town hall, which identified the needs and priorities for coastal caregivers. And based on these findings, we implemented monthly support group meetings. We include caregivers as a theme in our Seniors Update e-news. And we're working with other community partners to expand supports and resources for caregivers on the coast. And the Healthy Aging Community Collaborative, fondly known as the HAC, is a new working group to the Seniors Planning Table this year. We've six organizations from the Sunshine Coast met collaboratively to apply for healthy aging grants from the United Way. And we were successful in getting 4 of those grants. The partners were our Pender Harbor Health Center, Sunshine Coast Division of Family Practice, Community Services, both senior centers, Gibson's and Seashelt, and the Resource Center. So, sorry, I'm moving through this quickly because I know the slides are really full, but I know you can read there, but I'll do the highlights. So the Transportation Innovation and Support, that's the what United Way calls the Aging in Motion grant. Pender Harbor Health Center was successful in getting that grant to expand the service of its small community bus so that now it provides seniors from Earls Cove to Half Moon Bay with bus service to Seashell 3 times a week for improved access to health services. The Volunteer Coordination and Support Grant went to Sunshine Coast Community Services and assists organizations in strengthening volunteer recruitment and improving training programs for work both for seniors and volunteer programs that recruit seniors. The Social Meals Program sits with Gibson Senior Society now and has been phenomenally successful. It provides free lunches every Saturday at Harmony Hall. 200 meals have been served there since September. And they have expanded the program to also provide monthly free meals in Pender Harbor, to Pender Harbor seniors, and to St. Bart's Food Bank for seniors. And the Seniors Community Connector is a program with the Resource Center. The Community Connector is a social prescribing role that the United Way has implemented across British Columbia for connecting seniors with community supports and services to improve their health and wellness outcomes, particularly by providing social connections and to prevent social isolation. So the Seniors Planning Table really tries to develop both a systems level approach and partnerships for practical community level impact. This year, we're working closely with many partner organizations on several key projects, including the Building Capacity Dementia Project with UBC, Celebrating Seniors with the Home Healthcare Network, Seniors Workshops at Gibson's Public Market, and my particular favorite, advocating for a seniors rate at the local rink for the Rusty Cranks seniors hockey team. So our Sunshine Coast seniors need to be visible, need to be heard, and need to be included. Over the coming year, the Seniors Planning Table will maximize its community impact efforts by ensuring that the OCP planning in Seashell, Gibson's, and SCRD are age-friendly. We're building on our collaborative strength by strengthening our local partnerships with all sectors to improve resources and support for seniors, including transportation, housing, and caregiver support. And finally, looking forward, we have 2 major goals. long-term, community-driven solutions for improved seniors' housing, transportation, and wellness, and long-term sustainable funding for an expanded senior services program at the Resource Center. Thank you for your time today, and thank you for your long-term commitment to seniors on the Sunshine Coast.
That's your presentation?
That is it.
Okay, there's three of you, so I wasn't sure if a third would speak. And I'm glad that you got my memo on dress code today, so,
Black.
yeah. You read my memo? Oh, that's okay, she's the lead, yeah, she read the memo, thank you. So thank you for your presentation and all the work you do for the people that are in the seniors category and many of us that are quickly approaching those years. So you're doing the work that will serve us all. Any questions? I see one over here.
Mhm.
Councillor Shepherd.
Thanks very much for the presentation. Some of us are already in those years, so.
We're all going to get there.
Yeah, we're all going to get there, hopefully. Yeah, it's a really impressive array of programs that you're advocating for and bringing about. You know, it makes me think of the first letter I received before the election was even won in 2022, and it was from a senior saying, we are desperately need housing. So I think council's fully aware of that need. Unfortunately, is woefully short in producing opportunities, but know that it's sort of top of mind, and we're looking for any kind of creative result for more seniors housing. So wanted to leave you with that. We will
Mhm.
work with Kelly from Cover the Coast,
Yes, she's great.
who's terrific in
Yeah.
terms of advancing that cause. So just want to leave you with that. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Shepherd. Any other questions? Councillor Bell?
Com-
Comment?
Thank you. I mean, the work you do is absolutely tremendous, all of you. And you just never cease to amaze me, the amount of work that you continue to do and just moving forward. So the thing that really I know I've always heard from the seniors planning table is that you're so aware of the situation with the isolation situation in so many ways. And you know, whether it's the housing or whether it's, you know, social services, so many of the programs you have that in mind as you are moving forward. So thank you for that. I know that you're very, very in tune with the needs of our community. Very much appreciate what you do.
Thank you. And I would just say, to add to that, I think the challenge is that I presented them as distinct issues, but they are all overlapping. Transportation makes seniors housing an issue, and seniors housing, the lack of it makes transportation an issue. People stay with driving longer than they should. The fact that there's nowhere to downsize to adequately, these are sort of systemic overlapping problems. So I'll leave you with that.
Yeah, I think I was following one of those drivers last night. Yeah. Just difficult conditions, right? And
Yes.
as you referenced, driving longer than you should, and it was difficult conditions, driving very slow. And
Mhm.
consequently, people were passing. And we're not sure who was driving, but, you know, obviously, but it could be, right?
Mhm.
Just challenges of driving at night. I even find last night in the rain was challenging, so. Right?
Yes.
Yeah. Was that you? Okay, we'll talk after, Councillor Bell. I was late. I was late to an appointment, Councillor Bell, so, yeah, okay. Lots of people taking responsibility. That's good. Accountability. Any other questions from council? Yeah. Any other questions? None? Obviously a comprehensive report. Thanks again for all that you do to represent our seniors. Just a question that I ask sometimes, is there any way, I mean, you know, our constraints and our tax base, and any way we can help, little things that we can do at the District of Sechelt?
We maintain funding if you can't find it in your budget to improve it. Maintenance is good. I would say conversations. As I said, some of these issues are at the policy level and at the systems level. So having more, we're trying to fight the fight at the community level, but having more conversations and integration with you would would be helpful as well. I think sometimes for us to understand your constraints and the barriers you face would be helpful.
Do we have a council member at the seniors planning to give us a reminder to me? Yeah,
Mhm.
yourself. So
Yes.
obviously you can bring that information
Yeah.
back to us, Councillor Bell. Yeah, okay, thanks.
I just wanted to add that many years ago when the funding stopped, we had no coordinator, and that was before it evolved to what it is right now. And I think all of the work we've maintained and the momentum we've had would stop. We didn't sustain funding, let alone increase it. And I'd just like to invite each of you, the comments about all of us aging. I sit on a provincial working group for seniors in transportation, which has been infused into our working group. And one of the conversations that we had in a lot of our pop-up meetings and interviews in the community and the mail-out ones is something that I invite each of you to consider. What might be the impact of your day-to-day life if you did not any longer drive? And it's the issue of driver cessation. And as a result, the big picture planning in regard to transportation is absolutely essential for all of the policymakers on the coast to attend to. I just leave you with that because it's integral to issues of isolation and being involved in the community. So the grants we've got from United Way are allowing us to enhance some little bits of that and peck away at it, but it's a policy issue down the road for planning, which is why the PICS grant for the transportation group hopefully will have a similar outcome to what we did with housing, having Cully Foley heading it up. Because really what we're doing is we've done deep dives into research that provide opportunities to give you that background in making some of your policy decisions. So thank you for the funding to date and thanks for your support.
Thanks again. Okay, let's go on to the next item, which is 5.1, Community Land Development Analysis Update. And I think that's Mr. Pearson that's introducing that, correct? Yeah, and the report is in front of us with the purpose, but if you want to speak to it. Are you speaking to it? Yeah. Okay, great. You come to the center, sure. Yeah.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Yeah, the report here is just an update on the community land development analysis and the consultant chosen to undertake that project. The name of the consultant is Dialogue BC Architecture, Engineering, Interior Design Planning Incorporated. We condense that to just Dialogue. There was 2 submissions for the RFP. Both were very strong. Dialogue won out mostly on pricing. In the other categories and criteria, it was very close. I can say that. The report talks about the funding outlays under the Complete Communities Program grant that we received for $200,000 earlier this year. It talks about timelines and the relationship between the CLDA and the OCP update. Those 2 projects can proceed simultaneously, at least for the first initial stages of the OCP review. The main ones being important are the residential policies of our OCP have to be updated and completed by the end of next year. And the CLDA project will certainly complement that effort. We do have substantial public engagement built in to the RFP, and we're looking forward to that and reaching out to many groups, including the people who just spoke before me, on the 4 major lenses that we have to look at: housing, transportation, daily needs, and infrastructure. And all 4 of those lenses can be tied intimately to the policies in our new OCP. So we saw opportunities for synergy, and we're very excited about moving forward with that. If you have any questions, I'm here.
Okay, great. It looks like we have $200,000 in hand for this project. It sounds like grant given. That's what you said, and then $100,000 is budgeted. Yes.
Mr. Chair, we have $100,000 in hand, and we will receive another $100,000 when the project's completed.
Okay, any questions?
Thank you, Chair. Just to let council know, when I read this, I was, I don't know if the right word is amused, but I did some work with Dialogue in about 2021. And so I've never been so happy to, as I was when I read it, to realize I'd had nothing to do with the selection process of this engagement. So I just wanted council to know that. Thanks.
Okay, any other questions? Councillor Toth?
Thank you, Chair. Just to clarify, I'm looking at page 5 in our agenda, which is the side-by-side of the project synergies. And it mentions a phase 1 timeline for the OCP review being to December 2025. I'm just wondering how that lines up with the provincial requirements to do the OCP updates by the end of 2025. Is this indeed going to be sort of what we need to do to get aligned with the provincial requirements, or is there an extension, or does it just have to be in process? Thank you.
Mr. Chair, on the right-hand side is the work needed for the first phase of the OCP review, and updating our residential policies is what has to be done by the end of 2025. So that's intended to be summarized in that one. And then on the left-hand side is the CLDA, and we're planning on having both of those running more or less the same time. However, the CLDA is due to be completed in May next year. So there's a pretty tight timeline for that. And it's possible, but we might be asking for an extension.
Councillor Shepherd?
Thanks for the report. And just a sort of side note from our meeting with the community associations last night, they were anxious, as always, to find out from planning department, what are the engagement steps with various groups in town, and wondering if the planning department could sort of publish an outline of what those steps would be, if you're in a position to at this point. Thanks.
So obviously, there's members of our community that like to be part of the process.
Yeah.
And they're looking forward to some engagement dates. And you're hearing that? Yeah.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Yeah.
And certainly give out the planning email address, and I'll answer anybody on those questions. But we do plan we want to get our engagement strategy together and have it look good and all that kind of stuff, and
Yeah.
have a strategy ready to go,
Okay.
which we'll be working on with Dialogue.
Okay, great. That's fair. And Councillor Shepherd heard then that he can let them know to use that email that Director Allen has reminded us that people should use instead of bothering council on some questions. So that's fair. All I would say, if you tell us now that you're getting there, is just don't leave out anybody in our community. It's all about trust, right? So just some encouragement. Thanks. Any other questions? Pretty clear and obviously within the report and your answers to our questions. Thank you for presenting.
Thank you.
Let's go on to 5.2, short-term rental program update. And that is Director Allen that I believe is speaking to that. Report is in front of us, Director Allen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. When the bylaw amendments were adopted in October of 2022, 2 years ago, there was a council resolution at that time for a 2-year monitoring program to see how they were working out. So we have hit the 2-year mark, and this is our second annual report. We did one roughly a year ago, and here is a review of 2024 as it stands. So 2024 started with, we had, I believe it was 6 active temporary use permits that were issued, and they were then valid only until provincial regulations changed at the end of April, and we let all of those folks know, and that brought an end to the type 3 program of our types 1, 2, and 3. Amendments were made to the business license bylaw, and those operators were informed, and we carried on after that point with our program. And 2023, going back just briefly, was a large hill to climb. 2024 was less steep, and we are now really properly getting to know and operate the program. We've got dates for renewals of January 31st, new applications generally for July 31st. We ran into a few little bumps around this time last year, a bit earlier, when people were applying for licenses, and it wasn't clear with us, with some of the operators, if they wanted to operate immediately or wait until the new year. So we're consolidating our efforts and having deadlines for notification for renewals and so on, and we're working through that system. So what we're now finding is compliance is increasing. There's still a long ways to go, but as staff were discussing, we're not at compliance at 100% for any part of our regulatory scheme. There are businesses on Calgary Street that don't always have licenses or building permits. So easier said than done to get to 100%, but we're working on it. So the amount of licenses we issued this year is up. The amount of revenue brought in is relatively stable, but it shows that the overall amount of units is down. So as compliance goes up, then that shows the shifting of uses of other houses. We don't have clear information on how many are operating without license. Roughly, I think our compliance is roughly 70%. We don't have clear information on what happened to each and every one of these houses. Some probably became long-term, some probably sit empty, some probably operate with a client list that does not require advertising on some of the major platforms, but there's a bevy of options there. We're working on that. We have our review team, and it's been streamlined, and a new application that comes in, everything ready and complete, can take a couple of weeks, similar to last year. Delays sometimes occur when building permits are required to confirm and or legitimize a suite within a dwelling, and maybe there are some factors to consider, but we are doing the best we can. So I think the revenue was just a little over $80,000, very similar to 2023. We're now in compliance with provincial regulations, very similar to other municipalities our size, and operating within the maximum limits of what the province will allow us to do. And we participate with the provincial scheme. They have a registry. We have access to the portal. We go on and see what is registered. We can compare that to our list. That's still growing and evolving. The province has a generic email list, and they send out updates from time to time. We haven't encountered any of their enforcement team. I'm not sure how that's going, but we've seen some of the more higher profile ones on the news. For example, there's quite a large house in Kelowna that seemed to have a city municipal license, but the neighbors thought it wasn't compliant. We haven't really seen that as much in Sechelt, but our bylaw officers have gone on site in locations, and we've noticed advertising without license would be the common infraction, but we have gone to check and see the operators on site on particular ones that we've received complaints or have been notified of, let's say, which is not huge. We've seen the complaints decrease in the last couple of years since we have more of a consistent regulatory scheme than prior to 2022. And so we are ready to carry on, fulfill the obligations within the bylaws, start notification for permit renewal. The one thing that has come up, and I've had this conversation with a number of councillors individually mid-year, was the question of if somebody does apply for a new license after July 31st, is there a provision for a prorated rate, perhaps once a year, not prorated on the particular day, but a certain, let's say, I think we suggest 25% prorated discount after July 31st as an option to an amendment to the business license bylaw and fee schedule, should council wish. So otherwise, we are carrying on in compliance with our bylaws best we can, in compliance with provincial regulations. Thank you.
Thanks. So just a couple of things as we move on to council questions here. Is that on a renewal or a new application, the July proposal? New or renewal?
Or new application.
New,
Yeah.
okay. And is the money, is it revenue neutral, the expenditure? You mentioned 80,000. Is this a revenue neutral service?
Our only real expenditure is our subscription service for the Granicus software. And as I pointed out in an email to council, they did not fulfill some of their obligations from 2023. They rolled over a credit for us, significantly less than the 80,000. I think it was more along the $12,000. But what we don't really account for any type of business license or any type of planning service really is the staff time. So the combined staff time, is it more than that? Yes, in all likelihood, but that's part of the service that we provide. Applications for development are based on an average. Sometimes we spend 3 times what the average probably was. Other times, some applications are more expedient and we spend less and it balances out.
Thanks for that. Any questions from council? Councilor Shepherd.
This is great. Thank you for, through the chair, thank you for planning for the report. I know a lot of people have been looking for an update. A lot of people want to focus on the statistics, so I'm very thankful for planning to coming forward with this review. Just a comment regarding the revenue neutral, because I know that was something that the previous council were aiming towards. I don't think the description included, did the district hired a third bylaw officer to sort of help focus on problems related to short-term rentals, and I think that should be included in the calculation. But a question on the statistics provided. I see a lot of the loss of units as the district regulates this business fall under the type 2 licenses, and I'm just wondering why that type of license in particular seemed to have been hit. Or is there a way of saying no? Sorry. Go ahead.
I can't answer that, Mr. Chair, through the chair. I can't answer with any great clarity. It's easier to describe a type 3, for example, because they're not permitted anymore. But unless Mr. Nias has any information, I don't know that there's any real trend that we can explain on that. Type 2s continue to be permitted, you know, as long as there's an on-site operator. Anything further? No. Yeah, it's something to keep mind of, but we'll look into that and see how 2025 unfolds. But great question, but no set or obvious pattern on that.
Okay, so Councilor Shepherd, did you have any ideas when you asked that question, or?
No, I
No.
was just curious
Yeah.
why, statistically, the type 3 licenses are relatively small. It's type 2 where there's the most significant drop in applicants sort of dropping away. So I was just curious. Sorry, I do have other questions, but I'll let other
Okay.
people speak.
Okay, sure. Great. Any other questions? Okay.
Thank you, Chair. Mine's a general question, and the reference in the report is, of course, the priorities were to, among other things, protect the long-term rental supply and support the tourism industry. And without getting too much into the statistics, I guess I'm curious, has it worked? Because we all received a letter on an unrelated matter referencing the impact on, I think it was the food and beverage industry, about the lack of tourist customers. So, 2-part question. Have we seen a noticeable increase in long-term rentals? And maybe I'll leave it there because I think the tourism side is will sadly be self-evident in the coming months.
It's a tough question because we don't monitor or regulate long-term rentals. We don't issue business licenses. CMHC doesn't provide vacancy data here. So all I can say is anecdotally, yes, we have, but I don't have statistics for that. Thus not included in here. It's a challenging one, and it's an information gap all around. So I'm not sure how else we can track that, but we certainly have seen applications for rental buildings.
Yeah, I wonder if any outside organizations could help cover the coast. Rito, when it existed, or even the Chamber of Commerce with potentially competing data, but data, all the same things. Yeah. Do you have more questions then? Okay, Councilor Shepherd.
Sorry, I do have more questions.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Through the chair, I wonder if bylaw could comment on the numbers of complaints related to short-term rentals. Have they decreased? Have they increased? It'd be nice to see those numbers too. Thanks.
Mr. Niehaus, if you're going to the middle, do you just want to stay there for this presentation? Because you're next. Yeah, okay, great. You're next anyway, and you may be of some help in those areas. Thanks.
Thank you. The bylaw complaints tended to be specific to certain addresses that turned out to be unhosted STRs, which were not permissible under provincial regulation and subsequently ours. There has been other complaints about STRs, but they're principally about parking. People are required to give us, operators and applicants are required to give us a parking plan in which they have to show all of the parking required for the particular principal use, which would be 2 parking spaces for a single-family dwelling, and then 1 parking space for every bedroom in the STR. And we've seen a little bit of creep outside of that every now and then. People in the neighborhood have come back to us, and the bylaw enforcement officers have spoken with the operators and how important it is for them to adhere to the provisions of their parking plan. That seems to be the principal complaint that we've dealt with, Councillor.
Yeah, thanks. We often hear, I often hear, and I think other council members hear, is about Sandy Hook as an example, and parking's an issue. Although I think many of us driving through our neighborhoods will see parking as an issue with regular residents, with many of them parked on the road, especially in parts of West Sechelt. So it's an interesting one. Councillor Shepherd Moore? Okay.
I'm just going to add, yes,
Yeah.
through the chair, I'm going to
Yeah.
actually add on to Councillor Shepherd's question. On the flip side, are we hearing anything positive around the changes that have been made? I mean, we did have a number of complaints around noise and that kind of thing. Is there anything positive coming in around some of the changes?
Chair, I think it's fair to say that the drop-off in noise complaints would be a positive thing without overtly saying that we could call it praise. So I think, yes, there is tacit praise, but not overt praise.
Okay, Councillor Shepherd.
To go back to the recommendation on page 6 of the report, I'm actually in support of that. I don't know if we take that forward to regular council or if you want a motion right now, but
Yes.
yes.
When you're ready.
I would move that recommendation number 1.
Okay. Looking for a seconder from the committee, please. Councillor Toth. Any further discussion on that particular presented item?
I've got a question that we don't allow applications after July 31st. So why would people be applying, or how would this work?
Okay.
The good question. We're not necessarily set on that date. I think July 31st, rather than being rigid and saying no new applications, sometimes they will trickle in. That's kind of our deadline for, we'll put out some information saying, hey, the season is almost over. If you want a license for this year, you should be applying. There would be a few that trickle in for various reasons. So potentially that could be adjusted to an earlier date if council desires.
If I may, Chairman,
Yeah.
it is for licenses obtained after July 31st, not applied for after July 31st. So what comes to mind here is somebody that has applied for a type 2 but needed to obtain a building permit to legitimize a suite. And they would technically be in a position to obtain the license upon completion of the building permit, and that may be after July 31st.
Okay, is that clear to the council?
Yeah, I
member?
mean, I think
Yeah.
we're talking about a half dozen at the most, so per year, so it's not a big budget item, so I'm fine with the date for now.
Okay, for now, you're fine with that
I-
date?
For
Okay.
this year, we'll see how
Okay.
it makes any difference.
Because I'm assuming reports will come annually, so Director Allen?
And speaking of which, I was just going to say, we will be writing a further staff report to introduce this business license bylaw amendment, so we can provide more information and you can have a discussion as well at that time. So this is, I see this as a motion basically to recommend us to write a staff report with this type of content, and we can provide further information and further that discussion when that report arrives.
You're seeing a motion in within that date and percentage? Yes.
That's our recommendation. We'll be writing another staff report
Okay.
to,
Anyway,
yeah.
okay.
Mhm. Yeah.
I just didn't see that clearly in the
Mhm.
motion to direct you to do that, so I was a
Yeah.
little unclear. Thanks. Yeah. Did you want to speak further to you? Yeah.
No, that's
Yeah.
fine. The motion was to get a notion of support from council at this time. We'll then go away, prepare a bylaw amendment with another staff report. And we can clarify some of these topics about the delay between application and building permit and receipt of business license, and just help council through that discussion a little more.
Okay, just process. I'm going to proceed with the first and second and the vote. It's not clear that it's what you're saying you're going to do, but obviously that's part of your work plan. Yeah, okay, because it's not in this motion. Okay, first and second, and all in favor? Thank you, committee. Thanks, Director Allen and Director Niehaus for that, presentation. Let's then move on to, yep.
Can I just come back? I wanted just to flag as well, and can we get some data on the number of complaints, the number of bylaw actions that have been related to short-term rentals? I think, whether it's noise can be because Councillor Inkster has a wild party or because it's in a illegal short-term rental. So I'd like to know, because we did, as I think Councillor Shepherd said, we hired another bylaw enforcement officer, and I'd be interested to know, have they really been busy on short-term rentals? This is not about whether they're working hard at all. It's just on what are they working? So if we could have that in the next couple of months. Look into the chair.
Yeah, sure. I hear that. Is that doable? Do you want a motion from council or?
Motions are always helpful, Mr. Chair, but yes,
Okay.
it's doable.
Okay, sure,
Mhm.
sure. Okay, so doable. Or does this committee just want to make a motion to create that, ask staff to create that information? Yes, sure. Okay, yeah. Okay,
Okay, motion to, for staff to provide a comprehensive report on the number of complaints received that related to short-term rental properties. And I'm not saying licensed or unlicensed. I'm intentionally not saying licensed or unlicensed. Because
Okay.
if somebody's phoning in complaining and it's not licensed, I'm sure we're tracking it as a illegal, but I'd like to know whether they're regardless of legal or illegal. So the motion is the number of bylaw infractions and perhaps the categories for such. Yeah.
okay, that's your motion. Is that clear to the potential seconder then?
24? Yeah.
Yes, for 2024, up to whatever, end of October, so that it can be doable, and to be reported on the next 2 months.
Okay, I'm looking for a seconder then now that that's clear. Councillor Toth was seconding that? Were you?
Councillor Shepherd was.
Were you? Oh, okay. The hand moved. I was just going to recognize you. Councillor Shepherd, you're seconding that for that information. Okay, any further comment from council on the request for that information? All in favor? Okay. And opposed? You're opposed, Councillor Toth? Okay, great. Okay. Not great that you're opposed. Great that you put up your hand to say you were opposed. Thanks. Okay. Okay. Then let's move on. You're comfortable now, Mayor Henderson, with that? Okay, sure. Okay, then let's move on to 5.3.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Staff are looking for direction on the bylaw amendment council expressed concern about in the July 3rd council meeting, that 16.3 of the building bylaw was a roadblock to affordable types of housing. This type of bylaw provision was really intended to assure neighborhood fit and not really address affordability. We've given several examples of different radii in the report with 2 different houses that were advertised for sale by Nickel Brothers for relocation, one older than the other. The relationship of the post-building permit value was compared in a percentage in the report. So it's the cost of acquiring the building and the cost of the building permit upgrades, all the upgrades that the owner wishes to do, not the cost of relocation of the housing, of the house itself. I wanted to be clear on that, and I don't think I was in the report. I'm available to answer any questions. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for the report. Any questions from committee members on that report? Councillor Shepherd and then Mayor Henderson.
Again, through the chair, it's a great analysis. I really appreciate the way the options were put forward and the impact analyzed. So very helpful. I really struggle over this. To me, it's essentially a question of housing and how important it is to this market. So in looking at the various options, I really lean towards the initial move by council, I think it was Councillor Toth, really to delete that any kind of restriction altogether in order, because we so desperately need various levels of housing. So put that out to council. Thanks.
Okay. Councillor Mayor Henderson.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I echo that. And I guess, first of all, have we got any indication of how many prospective homes have the providers of these used homes indicated? Or are we talking about 3 or 30 coming into Sechelt?
I'm not aware of any more coming in. There was just one that we've dealt with in my tenure as chief building official.
Right.
Through the
Okay.
council, through the chair.
Yeah, because I think then that points to, let's not try to engineer this or be so prescriptive at this time because we don't really know what we're talking about. I have seen the one on Stockwell Road and it's fascinating to see how it works, but I wouldn't want to say it's, that we can, as you've commented on before, whether you use 500 meters or 50 meters, I think we need to be welcoming to anybody for the moment and deal with it on a case-by-case basis. So I think I'd be in favor of taking out this for now and challenging any. We should be asking anybody thinking about it to come in to see us first before you make any purchase, before you do anything. Come and tell us what your plans are. Maybe there's something new that we haven't thought of.
Well, we all know that there's a number of successful examples in Selma Park of houses being brought in. So we see that every day. Councillor Toth.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I am very much in favor of option 1. I can certainly see the appeal in option 2 to tighten up that radius and sort of loosen off the assessed value a little bit. I think about the house 2 example that was provided in the report being the one on Stockwell Road, and 500 meters takes you to the homes on the waterfront, which are in a totally different class from relocated dwellings typically. So I'm actually going to move option 1 on page 15 to remove it entirely. Thank you.
Moving to, you're making a motion to remove number 1 on page 15.
I'm moving option 1,
Yeah.
which is to remove the reference to part 16.3.
Okay, great. Okay. Yeah. Second, any discussion? No? All in favor? Thank you, committee. Now let's then move on. Is that all the committee wants to do with that report? Anything else from committee on that report that Mr. Nyhouse put together? Okay. We are done.
I just want to
Oh,
comment too.
yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
It is a really great report. Really provided a lot of information that answered some questions that I certainly had. Thank you.
Okay. Sure. Yeah.
Thank you. And I just want to echo the mayor's comment is that, if you're looking to do something that's, not typical, yeah, absolutely come check with our staff. Like we want people to be successful. We want people to be able to develop their housing. We're really not trying to just get in the way of everything or anything. So, yeah, appreciate the report. Appreciate the work of Nickel Brothers and others. I've seen houses come in now, and recently we got to watch one leave, which I thought was really cool. seeing it loaded out onto a barge to be shipped, I think it was Port Alberni. Port Hardy, thank you. Yeah, so it's fantastic and it's just, yeah, it's great opportunities. So many of these homes in our community already, were moved from elsewhere, even if they're not recognized as such. Thanks.
Even pubs.
Yeah.
Yeah, from Expo. Okay, any other thoughts from the committee? Okay, great. We are finished with the agenda items as presented and published by staff, so then let's move to a motion to adjourn. Thank you, Counselor Bell, Counselor Toth, all in favor of adjournment. Thank you. Any questions? Any questions online? I can't really. Tire them out, so, yes. Tire them
I
out.
know, where's Pam? I'm hurt.
She-